This video, for all intents and purposes, was going to be a review of the Pebble 2, which I got from Kickstarter exactly a month ago. I've been using it every single day, and I wanted to tell you guys in this review that it was such a great smartwatch that I actually really liked it a lot, more than I thought it would. This was an impulse buy for me. And then we found out that Pebble has been acquired by Fitbit for $40 million, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But Fitbit is not buying Pebble to launch or to run their smartwatches. What they're doing is efficiently killing off competition, as they're only acquiring Pebble. Fitbit is only acquiring Pebble to keep a handful of staff. They're killing off the hardware and the software from Pebble. So efficiently, as of right now, Pebble is dead. RIP. Rest in peace, Pebble. We had a great time with you. You guys were the people's champion for a while. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Pebble 2 in what was going to be my review. I'm just going to shorten it and use the clips in this kind of free-form style. And then we're going to talk about the Pebble and what went wrong. So we got a lot to talk about. Let's talk about it right now. So the Pebble 2 is an interesting product. This is the direct sequel to the original Pebble. This is not a sequel to the Pebble Time, which was last year's model, and that had its own sequel supposedly coming out, but of course it got canceled because of the acquisition. But we're going to talk about that as part of the downfall later on too. But the Pebble 2, I just wanted to talk about what made it so great in my opinion. So the first thing I really wanted to talk about is the battery life. All Pebble watches have had great battery life. You've easily can get 5 days out of it. I've got a week out of this. So for context, I took this on my trip to Hawaii. I went to Hawaii 5 days just last week, and I brought this. I charged this the night before my flight, and I didn't need to charge this until I came back 6 days later, and it was still at 20%. So I didn't have to bring another separate charger or the charging cable for this watch, and it's so great, so liberating to know that you can rely on a smartwatch without needing to charge it, especially when you're traveling. So I really like that aspect of not just this watch, but Pebble in general. That concept is something that we're missing from other smartwatches out there, the more premium ones. Second thing I really liked about the Pebble is the simplicity of it. This is a very simple smartwatch. It knows what it wants to do. It pushes notifications rather well. It does what it needs to do. And it also has a little speaker that you can talk into it for voice dictation. It isn't the greatest thing in the world, but it works. Everything just works. The amount of apps, the Pebble has its own store. And the App Store actually was pretty good. It was pretty well developed. So that aspect of it, it functioned pretty well as a smartwatch. It didn't do too much. It didn't do too little. It did the right amount. The third thing I absolutely loved about the Pebble 2 and other Pebble smartwatches was the fact that you can switch between phones. On Android Wear or Apple Watch, you have to actually factory reset it because it can only pair with one phone at a time. So you have to actually wash it and pair it with the other phone. Whereas the Pebble 2, for example, I was pairing it with my Honor 8 as my daily driver for my testing period, and then my iPhone SE, which is my kind of work phone. I could switch between the two. I can use the Honor 8 one day and the iPhone the other day, and I don't have to go through a whole wiping process every single time. All I have to do is turn on Bluetooth, turn on the Pebble app, and boom, it works on both. I can just switch between the two daily. But of course, none of this matters at all. You should not buy a Pebble 2, period. This whole review that I wrote up and that I filmed half of it was for naught, as you should be avoiding this smartwatch like a plague. They are no longer supporting it as of right now, and God knows when this thing might die. It might die in a month, it might die in a year, it might die tomorrow. They're not going to update it, they're not going to fix any bugs. With iOS continuing up, with Android continuing up, any Play Store update could kill this watch. You never know. You should not get the watch. They even sent everybody on Kickstarter an email saying that this watch was going to be unsupported and that for the unforeseeable future it still might be working, but you never know when it might not work. That's not very reassuring to any of us users. So do not buy any Pebble product starting right now. If you have, you should return it if you're still within the window date. Unfortunately for us Kickstarter supporters, we're stuck with this piece of junk. It's just going to be paperweight. It's not even a good paperweight. It's too light to be paperweight. I'm pretty disappointed. I'm pretty disappointed. I have to tell you, it's only 1 month old and it's already a relic. I So where did it all go wrong? This is where I'm gonna rant right now about Pebble, the Pebble company, not the smartwatches. I'm gonna be ranting about the company. How do you go from two times over the most successful Kickstarter campaign of all time, twice over? How do you go from that to basically out of business, like in so much debt that this acquisition for $40 million still does not cover the debt that you owe? That I just don't understand that. There's so many companies, tech companies out there who would love to be in the position you are in, Kickstarter, Pebble. You are the most successful Kickstarter campaign twice over. This is not a good sign for basically any kickstarting company, period. Like, Kickstarter and Indiegogo used to be a beacon of hope for small startups to be that big player equivalent, to somehow get them into the mainstream. Well, the Pebble accomplished that dream, and it failed so hard it failed so fast after it acquired that dream that it set itself upon. So this is a bad sign for the rest of the world, for the rest of the Indiegogo community or the Kickstarter community. This is absolutely atrocious, especially when you consider the fact that Nixon offered $750 million for Pebble, and they didn't take it, and they only sold it for $40 million to Fitbit because they were so desperate to get out of the smartwatch industry because they were hemorrhaging. I mean, that goes to show you were the most successful Kickstarter campaign, right? You received, what was that, like 80 folds what you asked for, and yet you still found a way to acquire so much debt. Either that means one of two things. One, your leadership was absolutely horrible. Your leaders, especially, I'm not going to mention his name, but you see him in all the Kickstarter videos. He must have been so arrogant in what he thought was a monopoly of the smartwatch industry for a small period of time that he had it. And he just wanted to expand, or he didn't understand operating costs as much as he should have. And he went too big. I mean, if you think about it, right? If you think about it, we have the Pebble Time Steel, the Pebble Time Round. So they had 3 new products in just that one generation, not to mention the original Pebble and the Pebble Steel. So those are 5 products right there. Then they were going to launch the Pebble 2, and then the Pebble Time, which was a merging of the Pebble Time and the Steel, which it should have been the first generation, and then the Pebble Core. So that's 8 products within the span of 3 years, right? You know, they went too big, too fast, and they got a little too aggressive in the market. That was not as big of a growth. There wasn't that big of a growth in that market to see this flux of products. And it got to the point where it was kind of confusing. Like, for us who actually follow the tech world, we totally follow it. We understand where each product line goes. For the general consumer, they knew about the Pebble. They heard the Pebble because it garnered such appraisal and love as the first smartwatch in the most successful Kickstarter campaign that people knew what it was. But then when you start making a Pebble Time, and then you also make a Pebble Time 2, and then you make a Pebble Steel 2, and then whatever. When you start merging all these products and then making a separate line and then making a sequel of the original one, which you thought the Time was a successor to the original one originally, you see how that gets kind of confusing, and how the public could get confused by that, and how manufacturing costs can be really, I guess, really high because you're making all these products. I just don't understand how they went from a Kickstarter darling to just basically out of business. Like, $40 million is a lot of money. Any Kickstarter campaign would love to be sold and bought by anybody for $40 million. But when you think of the heights that the Pebble reached, this is a huge disappointment. And the fact that now every single Pebble product is rendered useless and moot, and they're basically just garbage and a waste of space right now. it's not reassuring. I mean, unless XDA or someone out there creates another, I guess, like third-party ROM to run on your Pebble, it's over. It really is. It's over for the Pebble. Everybody who ever invested in a Pebble, who used a Pebble, it's basically dead weight on your hand. So, it's sad. It's so sad right now, and I just wanted to let it all out. I was so frustrated. I ran multiple emails over and over from Kickstarter and from some of my affiliates out there, and it's just so disappointing. I just have to say, this is one. It hit me hard too because I supported every single Kickstarter campaign for Pebble. You felt invested in the company, you know, and you know when things like this happen, and I'm okay with them being bought. They have to do what they got to do, but the fact that none of the watches will be supported, that's at least, you know, give us like 2 years, you know. Give us 2 more years. This thing is 1 month old, and it's not going to work anymore. At least give me like a year or 2 with the watch before you discontinue it, you know? So, that's what happens with Kickstarter when you take that risk backing a Kickstarter thing. I kind of felt like this was no longer a Kickstarter, though. I felt like the Pebble brand itself was so big. It got big enough where it was no longer a risk. But obviously, I was really wrong. I was infinitely wrong about that. This was definitely a huge miscalculation on my part for even buying the Pebble 2. So, yeah, fail. Once again, my name is Alex from Hypnotech. Sorry about this depressing video, but I just wanted to share this with you. And what are some smartwatches you think can replace the Pebble line now that it's gone? I mean, I know Vector is out there. I know the TicWear 2. I was looking at that, potentially buying it. Which one do you want to see me review? Which one do you want me to check out? Let me know. I know some of the Chinese brands like Liemfo. I want to check out some of their watches too. But definitely let me know if you know some smartwatches out there that aren't in the mainstream, but they're pretty good and you want me to check out. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, and I will see you guys next time.